It's working. High tech in this world. Nancy and I'm teaching Nancy all about light.
Light is everything, I'm learning.
Light is everything. As I said to Nancy, you're not getting older, the light's just getting worse. And if we could all carry around a ring light, and then I was teaching her about this other little floodlight, which is helpful for any of you guys who do video. This thing fills in and kind of adds a little yellow, so you're not so like blown out.
Right.
And
jaundiced, I hope.
It works very well. Okay. So we're teaching that along with how not to be exhausted by your Zoom capabilities.
Well, technology is actually one of the things that exhausts us. It is.
Good. Okay, so we're going to have that combo. We'll start. Okay. I'm just going to give you Nancy's bio. And did you guys get to read by any chance her Baltimore Sun op-ed that I put into the links? We'll tell you about it if not. Case, can you, or I can put it in here. I'll just put it into the sidebar. You can read it afterwards. She just wrote a fabulous piece and we'll talk about it and then you can read it after that. I dropped into the info. Here we go. And I think you'll enjoy that because it really talks about how intense our desire to be liked is. So anyway, we'll get into that, but let me give you Nancy's bio. Nance, by the way, you look great now. It's good. Very good. Very good. Okay, here's Nancy. A longtime student of Eastern spirituality, Nancy Collier is a psychotherapist, interfaith minister, and the author of The Emotionally Exhausted Woman, Why You're Feeling Depleted and How to Get What You Need, as well as numerous other books. She is a thought leader and national speaker on women's empowerment, well-being, and mindful technology, and has been featured on Good Morning America, the New York Times, and countless other media. She's also a regular blogger for Psychology Today. In addition, Nancy spent 25 years as a nationally top-ranked equestrian and serves as a performance consultant to professional athletes and artists. And I will tell you that I liked her book so much. A lot of people ask me to blurb their books, which is recommend them, read them, and recommend them. I do. And Nancy's book was so fabulous that I did. I think it's so wonderful what she's done, and it really hits stuff that I haven't seen a lot of people really explain. And so, Nance, why don't we talk a little bit about why we're so damn exhausted all the time, and maybe talk a little bit about the op-ed you did. And I'm going to go open the door downstairs because I hear my thing is unstable. So you go ahead. I'll be right back.
All right, great. Hello, welcome everyone. Robin and Sue and R. Mittman, and Casey. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted also that you are taking something like emotional exhaustion seriously, or that the title caught your eye enough. I'm not delighted that you're emotionally exhausted. I'm delighted that you're attending to it. And I know what a miracle it is these days to be able to get an hour to yourself and to actually take it. So that's a really big deal. You know, I wrote this book because I've been a therapist for almost 30 years, and I've been hearing the same kinds of words and the same kind of descriptions and same kind of experiences from women for decades, that speak to a deep feeling of depletion, of having given everything down to our bone marrow and having nothing left to give. And also a sense of knowing who we are in all of our roles as a mother, as a daughter, as an employee, as a so on, but not really knowing who we are for ourselves. And I've been listening to women talk about feeling like they know what everyone in their life wants and needs and are so good at filling it, but really having no idea what they want and need. So these sorts of statements were so consistent among women that I felt compelled to try and get under what is it really that is causing this level of emotional exhaustion. You know, one of my first clients, I was maybe 20 something and just out of the blocks. She had said to me, she was a woman, Miranda, I never forgot her, but she was engaging, connected, inside and out, beautiful, wise. And she said to me that she was utterly depleted. And when I asked her what she wanted, she said, I want a bolder and more authentic life, even if that comes at the expense of being so damn likable. And that statement always stuck with me. It was an initial seed of 30 years later, what became this book, that there was a knowing that our likability and our exhaustion, they have something to do with each other. And then steps in, as we know, self-care and, manicures and pedicures and massages. And I'm the first to run out and get a massage, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Nothing to do with this fundamental exhaustion that we feel. And worse even, because this exhaustion is exacerbated by the belief that it will be solved with a manicure. And what the self-care $14 billion industry is really doing right now is perpetuating this idea that the answer to our exhaustion sits outside of us, in a treatment, in a cream, in a something, which is the very problem that creates the exhaustion, that we are not the destination. The self-care industry also creates a kind of distraction, right? A sense of we're not enough, we're not enough, we're not enough. And it's another should. Are you really doing enough? Are you doing enough? Shouldn't you be doing more self-care? It becomes something else we have to do to prove we're a woman who self-cares. So our entire approach to our exhaustion is wrong and making it worse and making us further believe that we're the problem. So what I've found in interviewing hundreds of women is that there is a real link between our relentless drive for likability and our exhaustion, our deep sense of having left some kind of fundamental vitality behind. We wake up at some point in our lives and we ask the question, where am I? Where am I in this life? Right? I've been all these wonderful things to all these people, and I've maybe created a beautiful life. But there's a sense of having disconnected maybe a long time ago from something authentic, something that has to do with what we really want and need. And what I've come to understand, we all know, that from the time we're little girls, those little heads start getting filled up with all sorts of ideas about how to be a good girl. Nice, sweet, kind, generous, empathic, giving, and most of all, selfless, right? Selfless. So we learn very early that we are best served being very tuned into other people's needs and making other people happy. That makes us safe. Ultimately, it makes us emotionally safe. We're liked. At the end of the day, we're liked. And, if we look at Abraham Maslow's 1943 hierarchy of needs, right above food and water is safety, emotional and physical safety. And so we're smart creatures. We know that when we are giving other people a positive experience, we're going to be okay. And on top of that, we can have self-esteem and we belong and all the needs are met. But the problem is, around our tween years, we start bumping into this big conflict, which is that authenticity and likability aren't always the best bedfellows. And it's in that time frame, 12, 13, 14, that we make a deal with the cultural devil without really knowing we're making it. And we decide without knowing we're deciding that being in a relationship with other people is more important than being in a relationship with ourselves. And that having a relationship is more important than having a self. And then we expect ourselves to thrive and live wholehearted and vital lives, living off the fumes of other people's positive perceptions. So what happens is that we end up disconnecting from some inherent sense of authentic self, which is like unplugging ourselves from our most primary power source. And we go out and we live these lives that do offer satisfaction, but we've long ago left ourselves behind in service, tragically, of taking care of ourselves. Because we've learned that taking care of ourselves means abandoning ourselves. And so one of the things that makes this happen is this relentless pursuit of likability. So we're pursuing likability to stay safe, but that puts us in this likability cage where only certain parts of us are welcome, the parts that will be enjoyed by other people. And that leaves a whole lot of us out of the story. So it's not about doing away with our likable parts. It's about welcoming the whole miracle and catastrophe that we all are. It's about bringing all of us back online, not just the parts that work for other people. A friend of mine in the midst of COVID went to meet a friend of hers who was in town for the day, coming straight from the airport. And when she met him, he wasn't wearing a mask. And so she took her mask off. And when I asked her, why did you take your mask off? She said, because I wanted him to enjoy being with me and not feel dangerous. Or another woman who recently, she didn't ask for a blanket on an overseas airplane ride because she wanted the flight attendant to like her. It's so curious. We try to make people we don't know and don't like us. And that, the myth goes, should be enough for us to like ourselves, and yet it isn't. And so unplugged from our primary power source, our authentic self, with only this small sliver of ourselves welcome, we end up utterly depleted. We end up wiped out because we've denied ourselves where our real energy comes from, which is the truth. So what has become really interesting to me is all the things we do to stay likable, to avoid being labeled, we know the list, right? Selfish, difficult, demanding, controlling, a diva, a Karen, what else? We can all send some in the chat, right? High maintenance, overly sensitive, hysterical, nasty, bossy, B word, right? We know what it is, yeah? How much energy goes needy? Oh, I forgot needy. Thank you. Fantastic. Yes. God forbid And that births the uber competent syndrome, right? That we're rewarded and valued when we have no needs and when we take care of ourselves entirely. That's the ultimate, and the trap that creates, because it takes us decades to be able to ask for anything, because we have to break that identity of the competent woman who everyone respects and cherishes. And what does that come at the loss of? It comes at the loss of our true experience, which is, of course, we're human, we have needs. But for women, that S becomes a Y, right? That S becomes a Y. And angry, right? When a man is angry, it can be about the thing he's angry about. When a woman is angry, and when an African-American woman is angry, man, they are an angry woman. So now it's no longer about the thing. It's about what's wrong with you for being angry. And, there was a great study done at, it was a Harvard Business School case, but it was about this woman that was an entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. And she parlayed that into being a successful executive. And then she parlayed that into being a venture capitalist. And she was quite successful at that. And these couple Columbia Business School professors got a hold of it, the case, and they said, let's see what happens if we give half the class this case with the person's name Heidi, and we give half the class with the person named Howard. Nothing else changed in the whole case, nothing. And when he asked the students for feedback on, what do you think it's like to work with this person as a boss, and how do you find them? In talking about Heidi, she was out for herself, competitive, probably got to the top with some unseemly methods, and definitely not someone you want to work with. Howard, no difference in the case, good guy. I want to go fishing with him. Guy you want to work for, smart, got it going on. Yeah, I'd like him to be my boss. So when it comes to likability, right, and not being labeled, we know that power and success and likability, they don't really go together. So there are lots of things we know that we can't be if we need to maintain this likability. We know that. And in the op-ed I wrote, I talked about a heartbreaking example of that, where when I was 20 and living in the sorority, my roommate was date raped, and she didn't report it because it was a popular guy at our brother fraternity, and she feared being unliked. And we all got it. It wasn't worth not being liked. And just last month, my dear friend's daughter, 19, at her sorority, her friend, she was also date raped, didn't report. And when her mom was asking her why that was the right choice for her, she said, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. It'll remove my likability, my standing in the social order. So 30 years have passed since that happened for me. And I don't know how much has changed when it comes to our primary drive still being to be likable, and still linking safety, our basic safety, to being likable. So what the book is about, and what my work now and research is about, is what are some of the ways that we can start to practice showing up authentically, even if it's not likable? What do we need to know in order to be willing to risk the labels and the judgment and the potential rejection and all the things we fear? I lay out starting to tell the truth, not taking the blame, moving from should to want, a life that isn't ruled by should, little baby ways that we can put ourselves, this authentic self that maybe went away in our tweens, back into our lives so we're not so wiped out. Because this is what fascinates me, is how do we plug back in and take the risk that it is to show up authentically and to choose authenticity over likability. It's a big deal to do that. But when we do that and we stand in our own shoes and in our own intentions as the author of our own lives, it is a sweetness and a groundedness and a deep sense of safety that no amount of being likable can ever touch. And we may take the hit for it. We may not be liked as much. And it's worth it. And it's worth it. And so that's what I'm encouraging you and all women to do, is to start playing with that, with showing up for real in our relationships, in our workspaces, and noticing how often we throw ourselves under the bus for this false sense of safety that comes with giving someone else a good experience of us. We want to move to a deeper and richer experience of life. What we really want and need to get to live that out loud, not the version of us that will play well. So I'm back around to Miranda, that's one of the first patients I ever had, who said that I want a bolder and more authentic life, even if it costs me some damn likability. And that's what I talk about in the book, is building that bolder and more authentic life. Step by step, conversation with the barista where you tell them, I want more milk in my coffee. Conversation with your partner that was hurtful. Just the very saying of, that's not okay, when we are always okay with everything. Or saying, no, I don't want that, when we always want what we should want. These are ways that we start to bring ourselves back into our own lives, re-inhabit our own lives. So I'm going to stop yammering there. And what I'd love to do is just, Lesley, let's talk about whatever interests you and see where you all are in terms of what gets in the way for you, do you think, of living fully truthful lives? Or where does it get sticky in the sense of where does likability still feel safer than the truth?
Yeah, that's what I would like to ask everybody here. I would like to hear your struggles with likability, because I certainly have had it. I'll just tell you very briefly. Here's my hilarious likability problem. I was at Vogue for 9 years, 5 years under the first editor. I got the meanest girls. I mean, there's a lot of psychology here. Why I had a room with the mean girls to prove myself. That's how nice I had to be. I got along with them. Okay. Many years on the couch figuring that out. And the hilarious thing is Anna Winter comes in, appoints new people. I mean, and I got along with the bitches of the bitches. And she pulls me into her office because we had a meeting with her newly appointed pet, who is now going to be the articles editor. And I guess I spoke back. He said something about something. And I said, well, why don't you consider this? And you guys, some of you know me pretty well. I'm not like a roaring bitch of any sort. She pulls me into her office. She goes, Michael thinks you're quite abrasive. You need to change that. And I said to her, you know what? And meanwhile, she had foghorn leghorns running up and down the aisles of the house. And the people that I wasn't even the caboose on the train that she had running with abrasive people. And I said to her, if you're telling me that I'm abrasive, I think we're kind of at the end here, because I know I'm not abrasive. My problem is I've been told I'm too nice. Exactly. So anyway, I would love to hear your issues, because we all have had them and we think we're tougher than that. That's what's so funny. Is that's why it rang such a bell for me with Nancy. Is it's like, I think I'm pretty tough, But yes, I do. I want to be loved by everybody. I want to be liked by everybody. And people in CoveyClub know if I fuck up one thing and I screw up something, I feel like a miserable, horrible person. Something goes wrong and then I have to apologize. And I mean, how do you guys feel? I would love to hear Robin and Sue and then Melanie.
And I'm going to jump in and say one thing. One of the exercises that I have women practicing is just that, saying what's true and not apologizing. To stop speaking after you've said what's true. We are so trained to manage, doctor, debark, sweeten, apologize for, throw us under the bus. When I used to order, say, dressing on the side at a restaurant, you would have thought I was a lunatic. I mean, I know I'm so high maintenance. I gave them all the words, right? I'm neurotic. I know I have stomach issues. I like the dressing on the side. And then there's a period at the end of the sentence and stop speaking. So we start taking ownership for just our side of the fence, not how it's received. I don't need to control that, right? I don't need to make you okay with me. That's you. So, but I just wanted to say that's one of the practices, is just say it and stop speaking. Yeah, where do you run into issues with likability?
Robin, we can't hear you, hon. Gotta unmute.
Yeah, I didn't even see that. So used to being on meetings all day. Can you all hear me now? Definitely likability, just it's everywhere, right? Just to give you a quick story. So a few years ago, unfortunately, my mom passed away, and at the funeral home, obviously there are a lot of decisions that need to be made. What are they going to wear, casket and things like that. And for some reason, it was taking the funeral home so long to submit the paper. In order to unlock the insurance, unlock all these other things, there needs to be a death certificate, and the funeral home is involved. And I just couldn't get the words out to ask the funeral director, well, when are you going to submit the paperwork to the hospital so the doctor can sign off, so that we can start unlocking all of these other things, right? Insurance, pensions, and things like that. And I just could not find the words to say, when are you going to do this? And I kind of beat myself up a little bit to this day about that. Like, I just got choked up and even thinking of asking him. I'm the person that's in grief, but I just couldn't find the words to say, well, when are you going to submit the paperwork?
Yeah.
That simple.
You're not alone there. I hear stories like this all day long. I couldn't ask the person to, move their giant boulder while at, in a Broadway show that was in the way. A gentleman had a gigantic package right in the line of my client's view of the stage, but she couldn't ask him because she thought that would make her look too crazy or what have you. So she gave up this show, seeing this show. It's crazy what we'll do and who we're trying to make like us. They're there to serve us, right? So in those examples, we really want to get curious about what was the risk for you, and what would have been the risk? What might you have had to give up, do you think?
I would have been worried that they would have, the funeral director or the funeral home would have seen me as being aggressive, and maybe they wouldn't have given my mom the dignity, dressed her properly, made sure she looked beautiful. I was worried about things like that, that they would somehow mess this up and it wouldn't be right. So I didn't want to do anything to jeopardize that.
And that's the thing, right, is that there's a punishment. There's a punishment. So one of the things that I've been teaching women over years is, so in that moment where maybe there is, often it's our narrative that there's going to be a punishment, and there isn't, because other people kind of expect that they would be asked to do things. But we can't imagine that it would be okay, or that we would leave somebody feeling disappointed, even though we're disappointed all the time, right? But what I often teach women is, if that narrative comes true, which it often doesn't, right? How do we return to a knowing that what I asked for was completely legitimate?
Mm.
Right? And so we return, the big turnaround is, I am okay with having asked. It was my right to ask. I'm in a state that's really challenging right now, having just lost my mom. I do need this. That is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And when we feel that, and we get really, it becomes habitual to turn back to what's true. So we get caught up in their projection onto us of, you're a pain in the neck. And then we feel like the pain in the neck, and then we feel guilty, and now we're back in this codependent loop. But if in that moment we cannot bite the hook, if you will, of they feel inconvenience, let's say, and so then they turn you into a bad guy for inconveniencing them, when really they're just not doing their job. But all of that aside, how do I feel about having asked for this incredibly reasonable thing? So again, what we're always doing here as we go through this process of becoming more real is we are breaking the codependency so that I am how you perceive me. Rather, it's building a state of independence. I am okay, and actually more than okay, with having asked for that, because that's the truth, what I need. I need to know when this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I have every right to ask that. So you feel that. And then we're not caught up in needing to control the perception of it.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that happens all day long. Do what you will with it. Spin it, project, blame me, all because maybe it makes you uncomfortable. Whatever it is, not even that interesting. I'm okay with having asked it, and I needed to ask it. But this is something, in terms of likability, that it just shows up everywhere. It shows up in all these different ways we're not even aware of. We're having a conversation, and women are constantly managing and monitoring everything we say so that it works, so that we keep the peace, right? So we're kind of like managing 14 conversations in our head at once, which is a lot of work, and it depletes us. It's like blocking some fundamental energy because we're not in touch with just what's true. What's remarkable when you start living this way is life gets so much simpler, because it's just, this is what is. And what's interesting to me too is that we have this mythology that, I give workshops all over the place, and women always say to me, I don't do that anymore. I don't care what anybody thinks and feels about, and we have this idea that when we take ownership of what's true for us, it means we don't care about other people anymore, or that we're somehow unrelated. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. I'm owning what's true for me, and I care about your experience of that. And yet I'm not responsible for fixing it. That's the difference. And I'm open to hearing, wow, that might hurt, that this is my truth. But I'm not to blame that that's how you experience my truth. We can both have an experience and both be welcome. So that is part of what I think, we've been taught to fear being authentic, in part because we don't really learn that it can also be related. And that is a fundamental shift that we won't be, one woman said to me, I don't want you to, teach me how to be a lady who lives with cats. So that's not the goal here, right? The goal is to feel more real in your relationship. not just that you've become whatever it is he wants, right? It's a different, entirely different way of living. And also when we're living inside the cage, right, we've disconnected. That's the big thing. That's the big takeaway from this. We've disconnected. We've shut ourselves off from what is our deepest essence and the wholeheartedness of our being, which is our truth. We've started to manufacture a self that can create a positive outcome. That's not being who we are in the world. That's something utterly different. Has positive effects and can create great things, but it's not the same way of living.
Can I ask Sue, do you have anything you want to add here? I would love to hear your experience, because I find it so, it's so enlightening to me, Nancy, because I realize how much time I spend managing other people, you know, and their perception of everything I say and do. How about you?
I'm curious, the biggest one that you would be? You put in needy, but what do you think has been the driving thing to never be for you?
Oh, overbearing. Overbearing, yeah.
Yeah. And I bet you were a smart, competent young person who could do a lot of things that maybe other people could not.
Yes, and I was told that it was going to get me in trouble very early on.
Yeah.
So if this is the trouble I got into, it's good.
Good trouble. Yeah. Well, and that, that's told to so many women. I'm thinking of something Sheryl Sandberg said. She said, women are told they're bossy.
That's what I was told.
Yes. And then we need to reframe that as you have executive leadership skills.
That's right. You have managerial potential.
That's right. But how I recall so distinctly, monitoring in high school how often I would raise my hand, because I often knew the answer. And boy, did I keep my hand down a number of times, because don't take up too much space. Don't take up too much space. A dear friend of mine told me a story a couple of weeks ago. I thought, wow, this is it. This is why I wrote this book. But when she was in high school, she won a national poetry competition. And when the teacher asked her, do you want me to tell the class that you won this? She said, no, don't tell the class. And when she told her parents that interaction that she had won and also not informed the class, what her parents jumped up and down most about was the fact that she didn't make anyone else feel bad that they hadn't won.
They were happy that she
were
hadn't
happy
done
that she hadn't. Yeah, because she was being selfless and focused on their not feeling like they didn't win.
Ugh. Let me get Sue in here, Nance. I'm going to pull Sue in.
Yeah,
you guys need to meet. Sue's amazing. So tell us, I would love to hear your story.
Well, it seems to me that a lot of this goes back to women's quest for perfectionism, or thinking we must be perfect, that every little thing must be perfect, or we're not good enough if it's not.
Yeah.
In our family, my mom, though it's not really related, but the verbiage that I got was, be nice, turn the other cheek, and practice your ignoring.
Ooh, that's a good one. Never heard that. Have you heard that, Nancy?
Yes, I've heard that.
Wow.
Which is let yourself be abused often.
Yes.
Wow.
And she took it. She was not. She was the epitome. She is the wonderful woman. Don't get me wrong, but that example, or that model, if you will, played damage in my and my sister's life. And I can see that now. but it came from a good place. She was trying to teach us manners, but boy, it just carried all the way through.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying. It's just really powerful, and to be, the clock is ticking. We're all getting older, and to not live authentically just seems such a shame and a waste, and it breaks my heart, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
To not come home to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
When is it time to come home and heal that split? Right? So we have so much compassion for the young one that set out to protect herself by being likable and being whatever would be wanted and perfect and having no problem with anything. You know, practice your ignoring while you're being emotionally abused, probably, and want what you should want and all of that. But as you say, we come to a point in life, for what? For what? It's enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
That perfectionist thing, I think, underlies for a lot of women.
And
That we're not good enough.
how do you experience, how have you found a way, you know, I call that welcoming the whole miracle and catastrophe that we are, this Rumi guest house poem of whatever it is, bring it in, right? We're not just nice and generous, but we're also broken, and we're also competitive, and we're also ambitious, and we're also mean, and we're also yes to all of it, right? How have you found the courage to allow all of that into your story?
Wow. To allow it all in, to let that go, you mean? I've been
No, not let it go. Let it live. Let it live. Let yourself be all of that. Not perfect.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, definitely. When I was a student, even grade school, junior high, if I got an A- instead of an A, oh my gosh, the world was coming undone, you know? And yet it didn't make a hill of difference, you know? And so now I've learned much better how to just let the little things go. When it will do, it doesn't matter one way or the other. It's done. And on to the next thing. I feel a real pull now in this last third. I just turned 71, to be authentic, you know, to yes, and it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, but maybe it's perfect enough.
Well, there's perfect in the imperfect. I mean, you know, the more okay we are with not okay, the more okay we are. Right?
Say that again.
Nancy, I'm pulling quotes out of this thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, do you
Say-
know all the quotes? You're like, there's like about 100 of them. Casey's gonna have to pull them out and put them on social media, just so you know that's coming.
But
You got a lot of good quotes. I don't know if you wrote them down, but you're like
I just
spouting,
speak,
just
you know, the more
spouting quotes.
yes, but it's our okayness, right? Depends on our getting comfortable with not okay. That's it.
Oh,
That we are, until we are okay with not okay. And that's what we as women have been taught. We can't be okay with not okay. And yet, the truth is we're okay and also not okay, both. And often both at the very same time. So until we can get okay with not okay, we can't be okay.
Nancy, what do men, do you see this in men at all, or do they shrug it all off, or they just say, who cares if they like me? They just don't give a damn, or what?
Well, the punishment for men who are not likable is very different. It's very, very different.
Not safety?
It's not safety. No. In fact, men who are not likable are often framed as powerful, as directed, as ambitious, as focused, because they're not bothered with being the nonsense of being liked. So we start early as little boys and little girls with different directives on what's acceptable, obviously, and what will make us valuable. And for little girls, right, it's really this likability factor. I give you a good experience. I take care of your experience. And then I'm valuable. And that, you know, becomes this relentless pursuit of likability, because that's how we're respected and cherished and included. And, you know, in primitive times, that would mean that we're not separated from the herd left behind to be eaten. I mean, this is deep and powerful stuff that's linked into our survival. But little boys get different messages, and it's really not about other people liking you. In fact, it can be an asset if they don't. So we do have different challenges. There are certainly challenges, as we know, for men, but I am so intimately involved with women's paths. And I have seen over the years so many women wake up to a blankness, wake up to a, when I ask them what they want, they don't know. They've never really asked the question. They've known what they should do. They've known how to be perfect. They've known how to be competent. They've known how to stay out of the labels and all of that. But they don't somehow know, how do I get back in touch with that still small voice that was me before I became everything everyone wanted me to be? And it's there. The beautiful thing is the voice is still there. We just have to remember and train ourselves again how to listen, right? And it comes with fear, as we've been talking about. It comes with fear. It feels very counterintuitive. We get so good. We know exactly what the other person wants from us. We know how to be that. We're so good at it. It's so easy. And yet, what we really want is to show up as who we are and have a more evolved and a deeper and richer experience. So we give up some of the cash and prizes. You know, the game, we know how to play the game, but we want, at a certain point in our life, we want something more meaningful, more wholehearted, more real.
Yeah.
So Nance, how do you prevent from becoming like, I went out to dinner with my 27-year-old daughter, and I walked into a restaurant, and you couldn't hear anything. I said, you can't hear anything. She goes, Mom, you're just becoming one of those old, cranky old ladies. And I was like, oh, am I? Like, maybe I am. Like, that's another trope thrown at us, right? That you're cranky. Now that you're old, you're cranky because you're going to say what you feel.
So I'm going to give you a script there with your daughter who you love and who loves you. Hey, what's her first name?
Lake.
Hey, Lake, I really want to be able to hear you and be with you. So for me, it would be better if we went to a place where I could hear you. And then we stop speaking.
That's it. Oh, good.
Yeah.
But it's funny, it's everywhere. Like your kids have it, right?
Yeah.
Of course. And my daughter, when I asked her, she's 19, and when I asked her, what's the thing you know not to be? And she said, oh, emotionally needy. I would never tell my boyfriend how I really feel. I'd be a total drag.
Wow.
And so it goes on, you know, and yeah, we become, the problem is what happens after she says that, right, is that you abandon yourself. You become the thing that she's accusing you of, right? And in this disconnection process so many years ago, when we learned to be good girls, what we also learned is that I determine who I am based on how other people experience me. But what I'm teaching in the book and so on is how to reclaim our own gauge of who we are. And again, turn that around. So when she says that, it's not, I don't need to entertain that, right? And you might even throw in there again, hey, I'm sorry if it means are not getting to be at this ultra hip place. Because for that, I'm sorry if this costs you something by not going here. And, not but, and I'd really like to be able to hear you.
All right, I got it.
Yeah.
You know,
How do
I
you-
was gonna,
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna, I was gonna add that, you know, we also gatekeep each other, right? A few years ago, I was in a photography class and one of the other students took some picture and we were supposed to, you know, discuss the reason behind why we took the picture. And I asked one of the other students some question about it, and she's like, oh, I don't want to answer that. And I was so furious that she would, because I would have answered the question. You know, you answer anything that's asked of you, you do what's asked of you. So in my mind, she didn't follow the rules, right? She didn't follow the girl rules. She stepped outside of the rules by telling me that she wasn't going to answer the question. And I was like, I was mad for the rest of the class, right? But when I think about it now, she had every right not to answer the question. She didn't want to tell us, she didn't want to tell me the reason behind the picture. Okay, that's fine. But I was upset about it because she didn't do what all the other females are expected to do. Right.
And there, it's a beautiful example, you know, because in part, there's a lot of resentment.
Yes.
There's
I was
a lot
mad.
of resentment.
I was jealous.
Right. Because
Yeah.
you know what? I followed the rules. Damn it.
Yes.
Why do
Yes.
you get to say I'm not comfortable answering that? I do, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great awareness that you saw the resentment arise, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Curious about it. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I think the more that we can support each other as women in not so much, you know, this sort of social media nonsense, you do you, go girl, you know, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you do you as long as you're likable is the real message.
Mhm.
But not in that way, in this real way of maybe even saying to that person later, if you had access to her, I think that's really cool that you took care of you in that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Yeah. And I'm working on maybe being able to say just that I'm not comfortable answering that.
Mhm.
Right. And for so many women, we just don't have the language. I can't tell you how many times in a day women say to me, how do you language that? How do you phrase that? And I'll just say, I'm not comfortable doing that. I don't want to do that. But it's like it's been so schooled out of us because again, our radar is how do I take care of the other while I try and get just the tiniest bit of what I need
Mhm.
happen. But most of all, I've got to make sure you're not upset by that or inconvenienced or disappointed or blah, 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 blah. But when we take all that out of it, I'm responsible for saying the truth. You're responsible for then how you experience that truth. And we can talk about that, but the language gets much simpler.
All right, ladies, we're almost at the end here. I want to thank you, Nancy. You're so amazing. Like you need to do, you know what I think you actually need to do is consciousness raising groups. Bring those back. Like you're really talking about something very different than anybody else is talking about. It's really quite different. And I think I don't know, there's something, it's
It's a
but I
refreshing
have to
way to
hear
go.
it from you. It's a twist on stuff that we think we've conquered and we may not have.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it's much deeper than the way we've conquered it.
very deep. No, it's very deep. So thank you so much. You know, I adore you. I love you. I'm going to teach you how to do your lights and your videos. She's going to do videos, all this stuff. Thank you for spending the time for us. I put into Casey and I put in Nancy's book link and how you can connect with her. There's her LinkedIn as well. We put it all into the chat for you guys. She's just awesome.
one thing I'm going to jump in and say, I love to dialogue, about what you're finding in the journey. So feel free to reach out and email me or what have you. And if you have thoughts on what you're finding in the book or anything like that, this is the field. This is what I want to know what's happening. So thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Nancy?
Nancy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna add one last thing. I'm an avid reader. I read a lot. Your book, and I told one of my friends, the best book I have ever read, and I mean that with 1000% seriously.
Wow.
It is the best book, and I've read hundreds of books. Best
Awesome.
book.
Thank you
Best
so
book.
much. That tells
Yeah.
me that it's speaking to some kind of a direct experience that you're having.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
Great. Thank you, ladies. I'm just going to tell you very quickly what's coming at Covey, just so you all know what we're up to. Right after this, if anybody wants to stay, we're finishing up our 30-day reinvention challenge. It's a wrap-up call. Casey put the link in there. You can see what it's all about. We're starting to do challenges together for 30 days, different things. This happens to be about reinvention. So it's going to be interesting. This is the wrap-up of where we got to. And then we have a big free event. We have our 6th birthday coming up, which is Monday, February 13th at 6 p.m. We've got some giveaways. We've got some special subscription stuff, which is going to be fun. And then we have a great thing, Jane Pollock, who makes these amazing pillows that she sells. They're artistic pillows. Anyway, I asked her to come talk to us about how to price things when you're starting your own business, because I always underprice. This is a typical thing that women do. And she sells her pillows, I think, for $2,500, and they sell like crazy. Yes, you have to, she has a whole thing. It's all about the psychology of where you come in at the market and how you price yourself. She's fabulous. That is on Wednesday, February 15th at 2 p.m. She's so interesting. And where productivity meets purpose, how to get organized and get things done. That's Thursday, February 16th at 6 p.m. And how to identify your purpose and use digital resources to organize your tasks, streamline your to-do list, and commit to the projects that matter most. And we hope that we'll see you all there. Sue, I know, and Robin, love to have you. And Nancy, as always, thank you. Big hugs, big kisses, and keep going. Keep going.
thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.